Hello and welcome to 50 Up. I'm JJ McCall. As a society, we've almost canonized childhood. We want to think of it as a time of lightness and laughter. But nothing could be much further from the truth for the man you're about to meet. Dr. Michael Irving is a therapist, teacher, and artist. He's creating a monument not to the joys of his childhood, but to the strength of the spirit inside the smallest of bodies.
My mother would line all of her kids, all of us kids up on our hands and knees and make us beg for forgiveness while she was pointing a loaded revolver at our head. My father used some of his children in group sex before we were school age. The suffering from that abuse, I think, plagued me most every day, and it just took several decades to leave the abuse, to do a lot of therapy, and in some ways to be nurtured and to develop a social network. Eventually land in a place in my late 40s where the abuse is no longer central inside of me. And knowing firsthand tragedy has given me a perspective of wanting to make a difference for others. And I think it took me until my mid-40s that I could really become, in a sense, immersed in looking after and making a difference for preventing others from being abused. There's a phenomenon called witnessing, and that's something about having witnessed tragedy, and that the witness carries the story, carries the message, carries something that's helpful, and even a desire to do something with that knowledge. And it often takes a person a couple of decades of separation and sorting through to reach the point of being able to be the witness. The trying to make sense of that led me to being very touched by and very impacted by memorial, like the Vietnam Memorial or the Holocaust Museum in Washington. One of the things that I saw was that when the Vietnam Memorial went up, that there was a social healing that happened in America. And I felt a need for that for survivors of child abuse. And that brought me to coming to the decision of making a monument to survivors of child abuse. The Survivor Monument is two figures reaching out. On the two figures, there's room for 276 quilt squares that are for survivors of child sexual abuse, make them in art workshops that I lead, and they sculpt the squares and write poems that'll be in the traveling art show. The title of the sculpture is Reaching Out, and it's the community reaching out and giving support to survivors. It's survivors reaching out of themselves to support other survivors. The Survivor Monument will be unveiled in the spring of 2000 as hope for the new millennium. My life work isn't getting the computer program that's going to be, obsolete in 6 months or a year's time produced. It's getting a work of art that's produced that is going to take 10 years to produce. And I think when you're younger, it's hard to give away what you're doing because you're trying to collect. As you get older, it's far easier to just give away what it is that you're doing and your skills. Sculpting has always been a safe place for me. It's been a beautiful place, and it's been a place where I can be myself. It's something I've always had, even since I was a child. And it's taken until this time in my life where I can be a sculptor, and I can be an educator, and I can be a psychotherapist, and I can be a social activist. I could be all of those things together at the same time, because I've had both the life experience and the learning and skill over a long period of time. For a couple of decades now, I've felt like my art will become what it is meant to be.
Through his art, Dr. Irving is able to reclaim childhood as it's meant to be.